I would really love to cover a new acquisition by Blackstone of $5.8 million in real estate, most 70% of which is rental properties. And what I found on that company's website about ESG and Great Reset stuff. But unfortunately, the situation is so dire in Canada, I just can't bring myself to talk about, Blackstone buying up rental properties right now, because according to Ezra Levant and a couple other sources that I'm seeing, people are having a lot of trouble accessing their bank accounts if they are members of three of Canada's largest banks, the Royal Bank of Canada, the Bank of Montreal, and CIBC, I believe, is the other one. That's the only one I'm not familiar with. Canada, from what I recall in studying money and banking in college, they never had any laws against branch banking like the United States. The only reason why there has been, a lot of different banks in U.S. history is that originally every bank had to be independent. Branch banking was illegal for a very long time in the United States, and so once that ban was lifted, it has taken, many, many decades, over, well over a century, maybe 150 years, I think, maybe since that ban was lifted, for the banks to consolidate into all the banks that we have now, which is still, the number of banks is far higher than in Canada, where I believe it's literally 5. And so if people are having trouble getting their money or accessing their bank accounts at 3 of Canada's largest banks, that's a good chunk of, that's probably half the population at least. And so we're left to speculate why this might be. Now, the details of this are still very sketchy. I haven't seen anything solid yet, but I'm seeing screenshots of people who are putting up online. And, of course, Ezra Levant is credible to me. So if he's willing to put this out there, that makes me feel a little okay to at least talk about this and say, hey, this is something that is actually happening. Now, I don't know how widespread it is yet. I don't know what percentage of the customers of these banks are being affected. I saw a couple of people on Twitter, saying, hey, I've been able to access my account. I've been able to go to the ATM. But I'm seeing more people saying that they are unable to access their accounts. And so to me, the most obvious explanation for this is that these banks are being overrun with people trying to access their accounts. One, verify that they still have access, that they are still able to get into their accounts after Trudeau's emergency declaration, in which he said that the banks could seize your accounts. And 2, people perhaps trying to withdraw their banks or transfer the funds, out of those banks in order to, save their money before it gets seized, potentially. Remember, even if you have zero connection to the trucker protests and the trucker convoy, the Freedom Convoy, the Canadian government has immunized the banks from any liability if they seize your assets, as long as they do it in good faith. So as long as, they make the case later on down the road to the court that, oh yeah, we really did think that this guy was a white supremacist terrorist, even though he had never donated to the convoy, never posted any pro-convoy stuff on Facebook, they will be immune. And so you, by virtue of being a customer of any bank in Canada, you are at risk of losing all of your money right now. And so that is going to obviously drive reasonable, rational people to want to pull their money out, and it very well may just overwhelm their servers. And as scary as that sounds, that's the benign explanation for what's going on. The more sinister explanation is that either the banks themselves or the Canadian government are disrupting service in order to keep people from being able to access their money before they even have time to seize it. Essentially, the plan for this sort of thing, if this is a sinister plot, if this is intentional, the idea would be, okay, essentially paralyze the banking system for everybody for some period of time until you're able to comb through and find all of the insurrectionists that you want to, whose accounts you want to seize, then restore order to the system overall. But when things come back online, the bad people, the dissidents, will have already had their accounts seized. Now, I don't think that's going on yet. I don't think that's what this is. I think that these banks could very well be overwhelmed by people who just want their money out, because it's just not safe. If your money is in a Canadian bank, that bank can seize your account with no consequences, without a court order, without even a reasonable suspicion. It just has to be a good faith suspicion. And who decides whether these banks are acting in good faith? Well, the government, who is sanctioning them to do this. And so this is like that GIF of Hugo Chavez walking around downtown Caracas with a mob of supporters and pointing at buildings and going, expropriate, expropriate, expropriate. That's all Trudeau can do right now, and all the banks. He's deputized all of the Canadian banks to expropriate whatever they want from the citizenry. And, who gets this money if it's seized? Does it go to the government? Does it go to the banks? Doesn't really matter, because they're all one. They're all a part of a big Davos family. After all, the Deputy Prime Minister, who is the Minister of Finance, who's implementing all of these dictatorial edicts, is on, I believe, the Board of Governors of the World Economic Forum. And so Canada's financial situation has devolved to the point well below that which would be accepted in any pre-2020 Western economy. This is absolutely banana republic stuff. Financial security is a pretty basic thing, especially when you want to attract foreign investment. Who the hell is going to invest in your country if the government can order the banks to seize your assets without a court order and with no liability? They can just take it. The purpose of banks is to secure assets, not to endanger them. So if having your money in the bank is more dangerous than putting it under your mattress, you don't have a banking system. Canada is essentially in the process of implementing a policy of debanking their entire country. That will be the effect. And obviously, without banking services, their economy will inevitably regress. This is the fastest way to turn yourself into a backwards, deindustrialized country where people, literally are starving and have to forage for food in the dumpster. The only way that they would avoid this kind of disaster is if the Canadian people are so compliant and so stupid that they leave their money in the banks, despite this insane amount of risk that has just been placed upon them. And it's moves like this that makes me confident that the World Economic Forum in their plan for the Great Reset will ultimately fail, because like the Soviets, their goals are not consistent with human nature. In order for this plan to work, people have to go against their own self-interest. They have to become irrational actors, to borrow to put this in neoclassical terms. And it's been one of my critiques of neoclassical economics, since I first encountered it, that, yes, people often are, irrational in the neoclassical sense, but not to this degree. Not on average. You'll find outliers who, go against what an economist might consider to be someone's rational self-interest, because there are people who put, who have different values and, might value certain things more than their financial well-being or just monetary profit. But in this case, the negative here of going along with what the Canadian government wants, which is just for everybody to leave their bank or leave their money in the bank despite this tremendous amount of risk. I would scarcely assume that there are enough people in Canada who have such a strong loyalty to the regime in Ottawa that they are willing to put themselves in that much danger. I don't think there are going to be, inevitably, there will be a certain subset of the population who is willing to accept that level of risk because they're just, that confident that they're one of the good guys and that they won't be affected. But I think easily, if you give this any amount of time for people to think about this and to understand what has just been put into effect, easily a majority of Canadians will opt, if they're able, to pull their money out of the bank. I mean, I don't know how this isn't causing more problems in financial markets already, because the counterparty risk there, it's not just within Canada. If there's a bank run in Canada, just like when there was a bank run in back in the 1920s in different countries, that had spillover effects in other parts of the world. That's why it was a global depression, because we had a globally interconnected banking system. And the banking system is certainly far more globalized now than it was back then. And so I don't even know, I don't know why nobody's pricing in that risk. How is this not sunk in? I mean, I think it's sinking in more and more for me, certainly throughout today. I discussed it yesterday when it was breaking news, and I hadn't had enough time to think through all the implications, and I still haven't. But, this is a financial earthquake. Yesterday I was thinking just in terms of civil liberties, but financial implications, far more significant, because that's going to affect all of us. Now, the saving grace, I guess, will be that these emergency orders have to be approved by Parliament. And since Trudeau, his popularity is waning, and he has a minority government to begin with, I think it would be difficult to imagine. Well, I shouldn't say that. But I think I don't think it's difficult to imagine, but I do still think it is a less than 50% chance that these emergency measures are approved, and that this goes on more than, I think it's 5 days. I think Trudeau can do it for 5 days without, until Parliament votes. But after that, he'll have to stop and reverse this stuff. And if he seized anybody's accounts, he'll have to, unfreeze their assets. But still, the risk of this going into effect long term for a month or more is not zero. And that risk is not being priced in. I mean, what are they going to do? Are they just going to freeze everyone's accounts so that nobody can pull their money out of the bank? Because it's not going to be just the deplorables who want to pull their money out. Whether I'm involved with all this nonsense or I shouldn't say nonsense, that's wrong. Whether I'm involved with all of the the protests and the Freedom Convoy or not, the fact that the banks have total immunity and can seize my assets at will, just under some suspicion, would be terrifying. I would not accept that risk. My money would be out. I would probably put the bulk of it into gold, because that's it's very dense, and you can store a lot of wealth with not a lot of gold. And then the rest of it I would put into paper cash or like silver coins or something that I can use to trade, and then I'd go and sell off my gold coin or whatever if I had to take my savings out. But my savings would be in something hard that I can hopefully hide somewhere. Of course, that's in the digital age that's difficult, but the risk is probably lower than leaving your money in the bank under these circumstances. Because remember, the Canadians are doing this before they've implemented a central bank digital currency. Cash is still an option. They can't just freeze everybody completely. People can, as of my recording this, pull their money out of the bank. That's still legal. These kind of controls are really designed for a cashless society. That's why the Davos crowd wants to move the West towards a cashless society. It's, of course, why China has created a digital yuan and wants to create a cashless society so that your social credit score can determine whether or not you have access to your own money. So I think I've made my point. I think I've said enough. I'll wait and see. We'll see where this goes from here, but I don't know how we get around this. So with that said, I will see folks back here tomorrow.